as we get into this podcast, I want to start first with the MMA side of believing in a fighter, believing in the person himself. When you saw Khalil Rountree, what is it that you saw him MMA skill-wise, technical-wise, that made you think, okay, this guy could fight for a world title, this guy could be a world champion and put on some of the best fights we've seen this year?
I mean, right off the bat with Khalil, the explosive, athletic, just raw nature. Like there's two different things going on here. Like a lot of times people are just, they're super athletes or they're just fighters. You know, like where they're just willing to go in and get down. Khalil has both of those things. And that's a rare mix where you've got somebody who is just so nasty and violent. Where it's just like scary. There's been times where I'm cornering him. I'm like, oh God, I'm sorry. You know, I'm sorry that's happening to you. You know,
who was that? Can you remember a name specifically?
There's been a few, but I'll tell you right off, The Ultimate Fighter, when he kicked that poor guy in the body, where the soccer kicks to the body was the first where I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. This guy, you know?
Yeah, and but that violence,
and then just the moshing hammer fist, like that was a big thing too. Like Khalil, you know, he softened up in his older age, wearing pink shirts.
Not to cut you off, but what's up with standing over the guy after you did?
He was so disrespectful in Scotland. Paul Craig.
Paul Craig was
watch what you say about Scotland right now.
Yeah. No, when we got there, and I remember him just kind of like, you know, he's got his approach. He's stayed consistent in like his weigh-ins and how he gets in people's faces and stuff like that. But at that time, like I really wasn't having it. And there was some kind of like words exchange. And if you get too close to me and you kind of approach me like you're a bully. Yeah. So after I knocked him out, it was kind of for me to just, you know, look at that and be like, okay, like the job is done. The job is finished. But
you're talking about the violentness. You're talking about his ability to kind of have this attack, this full aggressiveness. And I think that's what everybody appreciates Khalil Rountree. The way he fights, the way you fight, you go out on your shield, but you just want war. You really go in there and you really want the best fight. And I heard a lot of people talk about people willing to get dirty, willing to get scrappy. They talked about that in the Yuri fight. But I mean, the credit to you that a lot of these fights, you go to the distance with these guys and you put on a show that not many fighters could put on. Yeah. And that kind of goes back to what you're saying. So you see that in him as a fighter. Is your job to bring more of that out? Is your job to balance that out with other things? Now, what do you do as a coach?
Absolutely. You know, when you have qualities in a fighter, and he talked about it being adaptable. When somebody's really good at something, my job isn't to like try to take anything or change. It's just to make them better at that and fill in the gaps and fill in the spots where maybe they're not so good. They got to catch up. But while doing it, it's a tricky part because they're really good at striking and they're terrible at the ground. A lot of times you end up focusing on this and then this starts to decline. You want to keep the fighter. You want to keep them good at what they are. You want to build upon what got them to the dance, you know? So it's one of those things where just adding, subtracting, you know, again, with him, the explosiveness, the knockout power there, the athleticism, the raw, like, emotion of like, I'm gonna knock your head off and I'm gonna stand over your dead body. It's there, and that's awesome. But sometimes as we get into these higher level fights, it's not that easy. You know, you can't just go out and destroy and walk through everybody. These guys, everybody in the top 10 is really good, really tough, really good chins. They're used to that kind of shit. So one thing we've done with Khalil is trying to adapt to when, you know, we have to fight a smarter fight. We're still looking to be aggressive. We're still looking to get that KO, hands down. But that's not always going to happen. So if it doesn't happen, where are we going and flowing to next? You know, and the goal is to always get the finish if we can. That's always the goal. But again, at these higher levels, it doesn't happen. So being a smarter, more technical fighter sometimes, and then bringing that violence out when the time is right. Yeah. That's really all it is. You know, I want this guy I want him standing over everybody, throwing the hammer of the gods down on their head, you know, and knocking them out. But unfortunately, like I said, fighting doesn't work that way. So we're always looking for that, but you just have to be smarter as we get older and as we get into the higher level fighters of how we do that, you know, and that's the trick.